my name's Aiden here at the St. Louis Regional to bring you guys a behind the bumpers on your Oklahoma Regional winners, Team 1706 Ratchet Rockers and their robot Mirage, shooting so fast you think you're seeing double. All right, on to Andrew. Andrew, can you tell us a little bit about the intake and what's going on at the front of this robot?
So we chose a complete width of the robot 4-bar intake powered by 2 Kraken X60s, one for the pitch of the intake and one for powering the rollers. We went with a 4 silicon roller design, and 3 of the rollers are carbon fiber wrapped in white silicon, and one of them is polycarbonate 2 wrapped in white silicon. This allows us to pick up balls extremely effectively because of the grip the silicon has on the ball. We also use our intake as an extension of our hopper, allowing us to minimize the amount of moving parts to the robot using just the intake extension as an expansion of our hopper. I'll put it down. Bro, run the intake. Our intake changes speed variably based on the speed of the robot, allowing us to pick up balls at any speed and not get stuck up going over and getting beached on balls, or pushing balls away from us and into other teams, or into the other team's areas.
Before we get to our next segment, we'd like to thank the following. It isn't too late to order competition apparel for your team at FRC Tees. Founded by FRC alumni and offering a free 14-day turnaround with expedited options available, go to frctees.com to see why hundreds of teams are making FRC Tees their first choice for their apparel needs. That's frctees.com. As you're getting ready for the competition season, think AndyMark as your one-stop shop for all your team needs. AndyMark's Launcher in a Box is a configurable solution that so many teams are finding success with for the rebuilt season. Also available at AndyMark.com, the AMPD AndyMark power distribution board that provides 24 40-amp independently fused output channels for safe, reliable power distribution. That's AndyMark.com.
Moving up from the intake into our hopper system, we have 2 pieces of SRPP on either side, all acting as the walls, with a expandable net on the roof, allowing us to expand out our capacity instead of having a raisable roof like many teams have gone with. As well as the expandable hopper, our intake jumps up and down, allowing us to hold more balls and agitate the balls at the same time. Along with the intake agitating the balls, our middle cones act as agitators and the feeders to our robot. These ribs along our cones act as agitators, bumping up balls up and down, allowing them to fall in smoother, and sucking the balls down similar to a blender, pushing them in and then getting behind the balls and pushing behind and forcing them into the shooter cleanly. The whole spindexer is one complete system, attached all together, the floor included to the cone, down to a gearbox, into a Kraken X44 in the bottom, with cat tongue tape on an SRPP circle. This allows us to push the ball and control it on 2 sides, along with being compressed on the outside polycarb rim. This feeds our balls into the bottom of the shooter in what we call our under chassis, with two ramps up into one into each shooter, along with a limelight underneath on each side, and our motors powering our gear, which spins our hopper, or our shooter, sorry. And along with the kicker wheel powered motors, which powers a front kicker and a back kicker on each turret.
Now, Andrew, this isn't the same spindexer you had at Oklahoma, is it? What have you guys changed in that time frame? What does your iteration schedule look like?
So over the course of the season, we've changed the spindexer multiple times. We started with the brushes with bristles on them to get behind the balls more, and we found that would cause many jams. Right up, the balls would keep going through the spindexer and not necessarily get pushed up into the shooter. Then we moved on to a stack of wheels. We had a 4-inch, 3-inch, 2-inch, and we found that was just less effective than the cone. That's what we ran all through our first regional. When we came back, we found that to increase our feed rate, we can move on to a cone, which kept more constant contact and matched the curve of the ball slightly better. From there, we added ribs to the cone to see if that would help keep more force on the ball and allow the balls to settle more effectively. And then we found that a more extreme cone would cause the balls to bounce too much, but a smaller, more rounded cone doesn't put enough power behind the ball, or doesn't impart enough energy behind the ball to push it into our turret effectively.
I will be talking about the climber. So with our climber, we have one of our limelights on. One of our limelights right here, and then we have another limelights in there, and on the opposite side of that one. On the back of our climber, we also have our radio, which is very nice spots that are pretty easily accessible as far as wire space. So our climber is only an L1 climber. We did that because of weight savings, and it just generally seems to work better for auto. It is much quicker than trying to flip upside down for us. So with our shooters, we have 2 kickers on the bottom. They're inside, down here too. And then in here, we also have up to 45 degrees of vertical mobility. Can you raise to 45 degrees, and then we can go all the way down to about 10 degrees. So from there, we are driving the whole thing with an X60, and then we are driving our rack with an X44. Using these, we are able to, with using the X44, we're able to save space, and we're still able to move our rack pretty consistently up and down. And the X60 is powering the whole thing because it is generally just a better loader for the job at this point in time. We have our flywheels, which were manufactured by one of our sponsors at Custom Machine Works. They are 6-inch and they are made out of aluminum. We also had steel ones that we tried, and we decided that the aluminum ones were better because the steel ones were actually too heavy. Do you want to do a shooting demo?
All right, moving back to Andrew to talk about a little bit more of the electrical and also how the battery is stored in this robot, and just the wiring of it all.
So as Patrick mentioned, we have an energy chain running up and down our shooters, our 2 shooters. It is mirrored across the robot, dead center, allowing us 200 degrees of rotation in either direction before having to flip our shooters all the way around. The energy chain runs in a snake-like pattern, down, back up, and then back down into the front of our robot. These polycarb panels protect all the wiring up at the front, and our energy chain is its own individual section, protected by Wagos on the top and bottom, allowing us protection and reassurance in case of another robot snagging, or we are catching our energy chain on somebody else's robot. Moving on to the battery in the bottom of the robot, we found that packaging was very difficult for our battery because of how we attached and set up our spindexers and our shooters on this robot. So we decided to undermount our battery, holding it in with a machine plate with 4 pins, 1 on each side, allowing you to pop 1 pin out on each side, and then pop the whole panel off, take the battery out and unplug it, and then pop a new battery back in. This system has been extremely effective for us and very efficient, also not allowing our batteries to ever fall out or even move. We also decided to go with undermount electronics on this robot, mainly because of the packaging capabilities of undermount electronics. This allows us to cleanly fit all of our large electronics and our clean wiring underneath without having to worry about getting in the way of other mechanisms on the robot, such as our spindexers or our climber. This also allows us continuous ease of wiring across the whole robot because most of our motors sit below our, as we call our brain pan, allowing us to just run the wires straight and don't have to drop down any long subsystem frames or anything like that.
All right, now moving on to Trey to talk about the code of this robot and what's inside the brain of it.
For this robot, we do have a move and shoot. So we use a vector math from a translation from the center of our Alliance hub to the center of our robot, and then an additional translation 2D from the center of our robot to the center of each turret. Each turret is controlled independently, so that command is run twice simultaneously. The distance that we get from that vector is then plugged into a linear interpolation table, which feeds us our set voltage and our set power and our set angle. We have another algorithm running at the same time to prevent our turret from snagging on our energy chain. It has 200 degrees of direction. So once it hits about 190, it'll go and run an algorithm deciding, is it better for me to keep rotating or is it better for me to flip all the way back around? If it deduces it's better to flip all the way back around, it'll flip back around and that position error should be lower. Yeah. As you notice, each turret did not flip at the same time. We decided to go with separately operated turrets so we have ease of use, and if one turret gets jammed, we still have another ready to go.
Now you have all of this complex code at the shooter. What does the code look like on the intake side of this?
Our intake has a dynamic speed change. It gets our robot's chassis speed in omega radians per second and then spits that back into these rollers with a minimum voltage of 6.5 and a maximum voltage of 12, which then applied linearly, and that speeds it up. So if we're driving fast, we intake fast. We're driving slow, we intake slow. In autonomous period, we're able to climb and shoot at the same time. Our turrets flip all the way around. And then this, can you say that? Our hoods will go all the way up or to where their set point is, and it'll shoot that power way up, so we're able to shoot over our hopper and right into the hub. We have another thing going on, which is our pose estimator. We use both swerve odometry and our 3 Limelight 4s. The Limelight hardware manager has a built-in Kalman filter, which will route out any extraneous positions. We also only trust Megatag 2 in really good solutions and really good conditions.
Now you've talked about being able to shoot and climb at the same time. What does the rest of your auto look like? What does going out to the middle and the rest of it feel like?
We use a lot of event markers, so that way we don't have any issues with our name commands. During auto, we start with our trench at a 90-degree angle, and we head straight into the pile. We head over the bump, and we shoot in the move all the way over the trench. Once we hit that other trench, we halt our shooters, we go collect another bucket, we head back over the bump, and straight to depot or climb.
All right. Thank you. Good luck, and have a great competition, guys.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell to stay up to date on future fun videos. As you're getting ready for the competition season, think AndyMark as your one-stop shop for all your team needs. AndyMark's Launcher in a Box is a configurable solution that so many teams are finding success with for the rebuilt season. Also available at AndyMark.com, the AMPD AndyMark power distribution board that provides 24 40-amp independently fused output channels for safe, reliable power distribution. That's AndyMark.com. It isn't too late to order competition apparel for your team at FRC Tees. Founded by FRC alumni and offering a free 14-day turnaround with expedited options available, go to frctees.com to see why hundreds of teams are making FRC Tees their first choice for their apparel needs. That's frctees.com.